a desire to be you, some creativity, and loads of joy can give rise to amazing conversations. Please do listen in Theatre of Joy. And like and subscribe, please.
I work, for instance, very closely with a labor rights organization here called FEDINA. And I organized, for instance, in one class, the students to work with FEDINA to prepare for for Senior Citizens Day, when they were asking to raise the basic pension of senior citizens in Karnataka, which compared to Tamil Nadu is almost half. So, usually in a protest at the Karmachari Bhavan, you'd have people with banners and, hoardings. But my students did performances. They created installations. One child, for instance, dressed up like a big refrigerator box, but it was like the pricing or the units of a human being. So the number of labor years put and expiry date and all of that. So, and it was so effective that we had the bureaucrats come down from the office to see the tamasha. And it was great for the students to realize that there is a power in which we communicate. I think it's critical communication, which touches the heart. Otherwise, all the sloganeering has become so repetitive and also taken away by the right wing. They're using the same tropes and the same ideas or formats. So we have to move away a little. We have to re-strategize. So I think I keep my students kind of immersed in what's happening on the ground. Whether I take them to my radio station or keep them in touch with what's happening in Bangalore, whether it's the rights of senior citizens or domestic worker unions, in which the students work with the domestic worker union, and suddenly, because they're all elite kids also, mind you, they were all writing back letters home over the weekend saying, Sunday ko chutti kyun nahi milti hai? Like, why is she coming every day?
Hello. Welcome, you guys, to the podcast Theatre of Joy. Today, we have Astha Chauhan, who is playing in a very, very wide field. And she has a very checkered journey, and in another way, a very, very sustained one. So let's hear it from her mouth, please. Astha, what is your theatre of joy? Please tell us.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me here, Adli. Wow, my journey, so I think it begins in an art college in Chandigarh, where I was training as a sculptor. And I had the pleasure of meeting Mr. G.S. Chennai there, and we worked on a theatre production on a whole series, actually. We called ourselves the Chandigarh Mafia. We did street plays, and it was a very interesting introduction to politics and community theatre and thinking about creative practices and how they engage larger audiences. Then I did my master's, and immediately after that, I started working at a contemporary art, experimental art studio called Khoj in Delhi. Khoj was a very interesting space. At that time, they would invite artists from mostly global south or from our region, so Sri Lanka, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and Nepal. And all sorts of experimental creative art practices were hosted there. My particular interest was in community art practice. So wherever the studio was that time in Khirkee village in Delhi, I designed community-based art projects for about 6.5 years, close to 31 projects. But I think that was essentially the learning for me, not so much college. College was great time, but one really learns on the ground. So what does it mean to work with neighborhoods? The idea of how class, caste, religion, all of this intersect when you work with larger publics. How Delhi is the center of so much violence, and perhaps that the urban poor are the worst off in India. So the neighborhood was a complicated one, and it was home to people from Somalia and Nigeria and Cameroon, and really multicultural in that sense. So the journey there was really formative. How to work, how do you make projects? Some of the ethics I followed at the very beginning was to have very small budgets for my projects, because extravagance in places of such struggle don't seem that great. So the projects kind of developed in that sense. I moved on from Khoj with the curiosity around what if international funding wasn't taken? Because if you realize a lot of the international funding that comes tailored in some San Francisco office. So whatever, let's do a neighborhood gardening project and they'll send you some money for that. Abhi India mein there's food growing everywhere. This sort of the kind of imagination they have of community gardens perhaps exists in a much more prolific way here. So then I started looking at how do you fund these projects so that they are ethically disengaged from the politics of the funders. I started a project called Delhi, I Love You, in partnership with the government, because I thought maybe working with the government is a way to actually concretize some of these ideas. We did the walk festival in Delhi, about 3 episodes, 170 walks over 2 weekends or 1 weekend, all sorts of walks. So guided walks in various parts of Delhi and of various thematic content. So you had history, of course, but you also had how the Tawayafs lived in Old Delhi, kind of a walk. You had a walk on poetry of Ghalibs in Old Delhi. You also had paranormal walks. So it was really interesting to sort of have the Delhi Walk Festival. And then the Delhi air got too polluted for us to walk. The only time when you can walk is the winter, unfortunately. And it became unbreathable. Meanwhile, I'd also worked with architects and designers in the same neighborhood to see if we could do a community-sourced way of producing new urban plans, which are more friendly towards people walking and sustainable transport. So how do you get to your metro station without having to burn fuel in the car? How do you travel distances? So it was a complicated project where you have to work with the neighborhood to also address the idea that cars are unsustainable, and to talk about unsustainability of cars to a community that has never owned a car. And perhaps their only aspiration is to own a car in their lives is very difficult, because you can't, 9% of Delhi drives. How do you argue it to others that you shouldn't own one? And 100% rights of the roads belong to the 9% who drive. And it's a complicated sort of question to raise. But we used rap, we used poetry, we used film screenings, art making to bring this conversation forth. So बच्चों ने नाटक किया, which Sukhmani actually directed, beautiful play where they would occupy street corners and do a nukkad natak about when children dream of streets. What do they expect? They expect to play cricket. They expect to have their ice cream aram se without getting run over. It was a wonderful play. And that project then got picked up by the municipal corporation to be implemented in Delhi later. And now I'm in Bangalore. I'm teaching public art practice at Srishti. And side by side, I also work for the past 15 years with a community radio station in Uttarakhand. So my interest in communities was clear to me. I found radio a very fascinating medium. In 2006, India was rewriting the policy for broadcasts in India, and I started just attending conferences. I met amazing community radio station broadcasters from Nepal over there. I went to Nepal and did a project with one of them and came back completely convinced that this is a democratic, wonderful medium where it's a two-way communication. You don't bark down at your audience. Your audience can call you back, and it's an engaged thing. And in my research, found this Uttarakhand radio station to be doing a damn good job. So 15 years ago, I kind of went there and said, okay, come, I would like to be engaged. So dheere dheere, with commitment and time, I got invited to be on the board. So I'm the only non-Garhwali artist on the board right now, which is really a big honor. So radio station ke saath to we broadcast to 700 villages, 2.5 to 3 lakh listeners. The content is, of course, agrarian, but also the station is run by women. So a lot of it is about women, healthcare, violence. And when we talk about violence, it's all kind of violence. So the women I found extremely liberal and powerful and inspiring. So I'm still with the radio station. In March, we're doing a big Kavi Sammelan, where we've invited poets of the region to respond to the current climate crisis and what is happening on the Char Dham Yatra Road, which is the government's pet project. And we constantly have this conversation on the table about what does development mean. but it's not a cut and dry show. There'll be music in it and there'll be discourse in it, and it's inviting people to comment on, do you want the road to come to your village and what are the pros and cons? As long as we can keep the discussion alive, I feel that is more than enough. Because when I was younger, when I started out, I thought we'll think of transformative practices. I wasn't wrong there, but I feel like it just takes much longer. And our listeners in the valley are much sharper about what happens around them and whether or not it's good for them or not. So yeah, I think that mostly covers.
And now you're teaching design in Srishti School of Design and Technology. And this is a very interesting aspect of design. You know, when people think of design, they wouldn't sort of bring all that you have used it as. So tell me more about the design aspect of what where all you've been and done.
So at Srishti, I'm very happy that we were allowed to design our own courses, craft it in ways that it would be beneficial. I think there is a certain undertone of all Srishti courses, which is to be conscious citizens. And to be a citizen is a constant act of being engaged. So my courses, for instance, in one of my classes, I organized a mela, neighborhood level mela in the neighborhood where the Srishti paying guest accommodations are. And invited lots of artists to come and engage with the students, use the team to create interesting conversations in the neighborhood. So there was about the conversations around youngsters and mental health, there are conversations about old lost medicinal plants, to recounting recipes, to communication. So really, the courses I design also are in a way for the students to have hands-on experience. I work, for instance, very closely with a labor rights organization here called FEDINA. And I organized, for instance, in one class, the students to work with FEDINA to prepare for for Senior Citizens Day, when they were asking to raise the basic pension of senior citizens in Karnataka, which compared to Tamil Nadu is almost half. So, usually in a protest at the Karmachari Bhavan, you'd have people with banners and, hoardings. But my students did performances. They created installations. One child, for instance, dressed up like a big refrigerator box, but it was like the pricing or the units of a human being. So the number of labor years put in, expiry date and all of that. So, and it was so effective that we had the bureaucrats come down from the office to see the tamasha. And it was great for the students to realize that there is a power in which we communicate. I think it's critical communication, which touches the heart. Otherwise, all the sloganeering has become so repetitive and also taken away by the right wing. They're using the same tropes and the same ideas or formats. So we have to move away a little. We have to re-strategize. So I think I keep my students kind of immersed in what's happening on the ground. Whether I take them to my radio station or keep them in touch with what's happening in Bangalore, whether it's the rights of senior citizens or domestic worker unions, in which the students work with the domestic worker union, and suddenly, because they're all elite kids also, mind you, they were all writing back letters home over the weekend saying, Sunday ko chutti kyun nahi milti hai? Like, why is she coming every day? And in those small things, I think what Mr. Channi did to me is spark a curiosity towards, but why not? And that's essential for pedagogy.
And these interactive mediums are so effective, and they're being used a lot more than those, one-way kind of broadcasts which throw stuff at you and you cannot even talk back. And so especially the radio. We seem to think that this medium is like obsolete now, but even the local radio programs and all, people can call in and talk. Yes. And, they're interacted with. And interaction is so much more amazing than just giving you what information you think people should have.
Yeah. As far as media is concerned, for today's day and age, all our big news channels, we are all suspicious of what they tell us, because it almost feels like you are told on a need-to-know basis. So a tunnel collapse in Uttarakhand will not be reported at all for the first 5 days till a big cricket match has to get over, and then suddenly the attention goes there. And I think for that, community radio stations are great. The diameter is very small, which means it is only concerns that affect you, the floods in your area. And Uttarakhand is, as you know, it's a disaster prone area. So in that sense, it's really effective for people to call in. Even now, the radio is broadcasting for the families of those who are trapped in the tunnel, as well as the workers over there, updates, blow by blow account. And the thing is that 3.5 lakh listeners trust us with all their heart, and we've earned this trust, really earned it by.
That's what media is supposed to do. We're supposed to be able to interact and have our say and all that. But this the politics and the what do you call it, the money involved, expenditure involved, just so that just a few people, like you said, have control over the media that is more pervasive and that is blaring into our homes. And but tell me about how many community radios are there in India?
There's a proliferation now. The Ministry of Broadcasting is actually asking people to set up the radio station. But I'm going to be very clear over here that the current government, on the one hand, will tell you, look, I'm doing great for millet. Okay. But at the same time, they're giving you chawal as free ration. So even the tribals in Chhattisgarh are now not eating millets and eating rice and getting diabetes within a year. Similarly, for radio broadcast, you'll hear Mr. Thakur tell you every day in the newspaper, it's open for all and all of that. But how do media channels run? Is through advertisements. Most of the advertisements are government advertisements. And these days, government advertisements are government propaganda. So if we are selective about what we want to broadcast, we are as working on such shoestring budgets that I can't explain to you. And we have taken that decision that beyond a point, how much inauguration news are we going to allow on our radio station? It is not for the central government. It is for the villagers who we broadcast to. As a result, we don't get that many ads. And the ones who are taking the government ads are then being told by the government what to broadcast as well. So to maintain autonomy, you have to give up a large chunk of money that could be made. We have Instagram influencers who are now being paid by the government to do exactly that kind of grassroots level propaganda that they expected us to do. So at some level, I feel that community radio has a bleak future. The state and the government have made sure that we cannot invest in corpuses from which we can keep ourselves afloat. But as a radio station, we also discussed our own mortality to say we'd rather shut it down than be greedy and hoard projects. So what I find amazing about Henvalvani is, unlike other radio stations, which are community-based and quite a few in number, there are only a handful that are credible and actually run by the community. Others are micromanaged by Qutub Institutional Area in Delhi and research fellows who are sitting in some other city, and because it's an NGO and it gets money, and people work project to project in NGOs. So huge amounts of money come to just write that kind of paperwork and bureaucracy, which we decided we will not do. So we do advertisements for local shops, and sometimes we just broadcast and say, Janam Din ke liye, if you want to broadcast messages, we'll charge you 5 rupees per message, but we are running low on cash. If you all love us, send us that money. So each and every 3.15 listener will send us 5 rupees in that sense. Or, the thing about trust is also that at the radio station office, any season you go, Chamba is the center of all these villages. So the farmers will come in the morning with their produce, leave it in the mandi and get 1 kilo of aloo, pyaz, kaddu, whatever they're growing to the radio station to share. So there's always love and food and people just coming to hang around with their radio jockeys. They love or read a newspaper or talk about something that's really bothering them. Or in some cases, the panchayat, this is happening more and more of late. See, the farmer is not a poor man. He has enough resources, but it's only if cancer or a big disease happens that it destabilizes the farmer. And cancer is now rampant in the region. So the panchayat takes care of the one villager who has cancer, and we do fundraising at the radio station level to make sure that they're taken care of. It's really, the texture of community is also very different in a rural and an urban setting. And I'm not going to argue for or against, because I feel that minorities do not have any space in a small village community. So minorities, including women, are better off actually traveling outside and finding their own voice and space. Having said that, nowhere in the city will it happen that you have to take your child to the hospital and your neighbor will cook and feed your buffalo and do your kheti, and that will never happen. Maximum, they drive you to the hospital. So the community radio station sits perfectly in a place where there is a sense of community. When we kind of transpose that idea to the city, it tends to not work. Because cities make us very suspicious, and the kind of the violence that we have to face on an everyday level makes it much tougher to actually put this together. But I've felt that kalakar is very different from an artist. Kalakar का जो interpretation है India में is a slightly mad person with a harmonium around their neck going village to village, a harmless person who perhaps has something nice to say. But an artist, if you think about it, literally language में बदल जाता है, is a hoity-toity person invited to big fancy wine drinking fairs. But kalakar doesn't go there. तो कलाकार बनोगे अगर आप भारत में, तो you can really work, because if you touch the heart, तो शहर हो या गांव हो, I think it's been nice to be the kalakar and not an artist. I don't know if that makes sense.
It does. It does. It does make so much sense. And okay, so do you think the coming of artificial intelligence, which can be, I don't know whether to say trickle down, but it can be, participated in by young people who are curious and who have some access to the internet? Do you think that can help community radio?
Oh, I think what I see immediately of text editing platforms, AI tools, is they can help us in that sense of just finding edits, but the stories that we write are going to be our own. AI can perhaps help us streamline the way we broadcast. So all our programs and ads and that timing can perhaps be structured by AI. But finally, I think a lot of work, because it's peer-to-peer learning, we have to. Gram Darshan is a show that we record every week. हर हफ्ते नए गांव में जाना होता है. Some you have to trek 20 kilometers up a mountain for. तो वो तो only we can do, because अभी भी उत्तराखंड में काफी गांव हैं जहाँ बिजली और सड़क नहीं पहुंची है. तो AI तो बहुत दूर की बात है. तो I think कहीं ना कहीं AI का जो काम है, if we can make use of it, I think it is a brilliant tool in terms of editing and text, etc. The image altering devices, and it can be ethically compromised, but that we will see as we go. Just like I think electricity, when it came to India, must have created a similar kind of stir. Are we better off without it or not? But we learn to live and adapt. And yeah,
The issue here is about survival, right? Survival of community radio. And whatever can help, I guess.
Survival will completely depend on government policies, because we are under the Home Ministry. And as a board member, we have to get our license renewed every 5 years. And every 5 years, IB comes to our houses to do background checks. So IB has come to my house and they've raised a red flag to say, why is this non-Gadwali there? And the current government is very scared of NGO types. तो उस तरीके से I think सरकार से ज़्यादा डर है, टेक्नोलॉजी से कम. And जिंदा तब तक रहेंगे जब तक I think there's a need for it. See, radio broadcasting is on FM frequency, but we have so many listeners, and on Facebook or followers on Twitter, we have a media platform. तो वो बात तो कभी नहीं रुकेगी. अगर frequency बंद भी कर दी उन्होंने, we'd still continue to do what we do, even if it's WhatsApp के through we sending audio programs. We've done that before we got the broadcasting license. we did narrow casting, which means village to village, you first go do the recording, come back, edit the program, which will have some story, some song, some relevant issues. The farmer has said, pigs are raiding my village. Can you find out from another village what's happening? We do the research, edit, and take it back to the village and play it on a CD at the panchayat house. तो ये हम कर चुके हैं. This infrastructure is ready. कि panchayat to panchayat we would go, people would collect, we'd play the radio program, they'd give us feedback, we'd do the next recording. It was way more laborious, but it's been done. So we are ready for it. If we move from analog to digital, there'll be no problem moving back to analog.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Wow. What else? Yeah, I mean, and I did know about community radio, but a lot of this information and, the deep dive is so amazing, so new. I thought kahan survive karte honge, movements like this. But look where it connects. You get an education and, in design or art, and that ultimately led you and the communities to this.
Yeah.
How amazing is that?
Yeah.
And so theater is not only about performance. It's about the Karambhumi area, or the area you choose to dance in and play in.
Absolutely.
Yeah. How amazing. Oh, wow.
So the radio station
How
work
much
is...
time we have? Yeah, we are almost done. So, what would you like to tell young people or people who are desiring to expand their lives and help in expanding the life of the community? And there's a lot of input that they have, that ye kya hoga, ye to kuch nahi hoga, isse tum bhuke mar jaoge, kind of a thing. What can you tell them?
No, I know that this challenge is real, whether it's art or design or theater or any sort of creative practices.
Or life, yes.
It is.
Even taking up a job and running a family is challenging.
Yeah. But without a risk, it's not worth it. And if you really, I didn't think, when I started out, community art wasn't a thing. It didn't exist in India at all. And I kept at it, partly because I'm stubborn and partly with a sense of conviction also. And also I felt a bit challenged. I was like, why not? We will see how this goes. And things have unfolded for themselves. Quite a few times I've had to economically be a bit unstable, but emotionally, it's the through line has been kind of nice, and a nice progression. So you've just got to be, if you feel like this is a practice that brings people together, then you're not wrong. You should totally explore it. And there are so many ways to do it, even if it's sitting together and making toys in clay with young people over 3 summers. You will find everything in it: politics, religion, a sense of belonging, questions for the future, and answers as well. So yeah, just keep at it. It'll take a while, because these are, like I said, the quick fix nahi hota ki aaj project kiya and kal sadak theek ho gayi. Nahi. But if you feel happy that even 7 people agree that it's better to walk than to drive, I think that's a great takeaway. So we should just count our blessings if even one person is left wondering and questioning. Like Chennai did to me, I hope I can do to others.
Thank you so much, Astha. Thank you so much. I love you. I wish I could give you a nice tight huggy right now.
Yes, right back at you.
And I'm asking whoever is or whatever is there, that there are more people like you who make choices like you have done, to use their education for this and not for one capitalist overlord, one or a few, who is just giving you a pittance, a monthly salary, and which is not good, which is not helping you in the larger sense. Wow. Thank you so much. And how lucky are the students of Srishti? So please tell everyone what you are doing at Srishti. Also, just half a second, half a minute.
So my course is called Public Pedagogy and Art Practice, but mostly from first year, second year, the two my master's students. Any classes, whether you're a student of public space design or you're a student of environment and design or UI UX, everybody goes through a class with me where we look at how does your practice become public, or how does it engage communities. And at the heart of it, it's a very complicated thing to say, but I exercises what are the ethics of public practice, in which how do we see our privilege, how do we see our engagement? Are we being extractive? Am I just going into a crafts community, taking photos of poor craftsmen, and then my thesis goes to Parson? So a lot of it is really thinking about ethics. And I know that this is I'm not on a moral high ground with this. I'm just muddying the issue to say that people with privilege, when they engage with communities, we have to do it with a certain sense of understanding and open eyes. We are not saviors. We are not going to elevate anyone else's life. It's only because we desire to engage with people that we should. So ethics becomes a complicated, sticky, but center to the discourse in my class.
And also engage with the amazing tools that are there, and fun tools. And life can be fun.
Absolutely.
With being a kalakar.
Yes. Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Astha. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
I love you so much. Thank you. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you.